Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Omar. I'm here along with Mr. C. Allen Johnson. I think he needs no introduction. He's well known throughout many circles here in the Bahamas. We're here in Freeport at the Q Club Lounge. And we're to have a casual conversation tonight as it relates to our natural resources here in the Bahamas. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce to you Mr. C. Allen Johnson.
Good afternoon, Bahamas. Good afternoon, everyone. C. Allen Johnson, critical thinker, and looking forward to this just clear dialogue, no screaming, no shouting, in regards to the potential that we have as Bahamians and as we have as a country to impact our people globally and as well as locally with the economic empowerment that they need in the Bahamas.
Awesome. Awesome. There have been a number of individuals who came to myself and many persons like yourself, Mr. Johnson, and they're now becoming more and more aware of the benefits of our natural resources here in the Bahamas, particularly oil and aragonite, those two are basically dominating the news lately. In your humble opinion, would you literally just explain that the benefits not just of oil and aragonite, but in terms of the amount that you think that we have here in the Bahamas?
Well, if you take the technical report and other type of mining information that's in the public domain, we have in value within the trillions, within a source within the billions of barrels of oil. And no one has ever measured the natural gas, because as you may know, that natural gas is now a new phenomenon that's coming off of oil and finding out simultaneously that you can use them both. Believe it or not, when you look at the old oil wells and you see that fire that was burning,
yeah,
that was literally natural gas. They were just burning to get it out of the way. Now we're beginning to realize the potential for us as a form of green energy. And so we have the ability to tap into natural gas as well as oil, so it could be worth trillions and the potentials of billions. We also have the aragonite. One of the beauties of aragonite that a lot of people don't understand is the Bahamas is very unique for aragonite. Unlike, you can find aragonite all around the world, in almost every sea there is. But there's a unique phenomenon that happens in the Bahamas when waters pass through the Bahamas. Because of the radiant heat from the sun rays and the temperature of our waters, what it causes an effect that aragonite just simply falls out of the water to the bottom of the ocean. And so what we have is almost like this mill that allows us to continuously produce aragonite. Now, a lot of people talk about aragonite. I just want to do a sidebar to sand. Sand and aragonite is first cousins, but not one and the same. And we do have deposits of sand also in the Bahamas. But the aragonite is in the billions of tons, and the sand is in the low billions. In fact, if you actually take a conversation that happened in February of 2012 in the House of Assembly, I think with the then Minister of the Environment, the Bahamas deposits about 5 billion tons of sand per year that can be harvested. If harvested environmentally, we can recover 5 billion tons a year. Now, the sand in the Bahamas isn't going anywhere. And the way for us to have a better understanding of that is that we live on top of a mountain in a river. And so technology, the sand that we have simply falls down this mountain into this valley. And if the technology today doesn't exist for us to reach to the depth it is to harvest them. And so we just basically have to capture it while it's to the top. But our entire archipelago is aragonite. We walk on it, we build our houses on it, and with it, our islands, our seas, our beaches. A lot of the beaches we have, we may mistake for sand, is actually aragonite. An aragonite creates itself in various different forms, and we somehow often confuse it with actually being sand. So the best way to find out is if you go to the beach and you carry some vinegar and you put it in sand, nothing happens. So you put it in aragonite, it forms. And you'll basically be able to tell the difference between the two. But probably about 80% or 90% of what we have in the Bahamas is various different compositions of aragonite.
Well, now, I know since 1947 to present, there have been various different companies throughout Southern America, Northern America, and even in England, licenses for oil exploration. I want you to just elaborate a little bit on that for the listening audience in terms of the importance of the finding of oil, say one. Because we know Mrs. Simon Porter, who is the CEO of Bahamas Petroleum Company, that is now trading on the London Stock Exchange. Because that's another thing we're going to get to, because we wonder why it was not put on this Bahamas.
Yeah, there's an explanation for that.
So explain to your audience the importance of one, the many licenses, the various licenses that were issued from 1947 to present, and what is the impact in terms of the discovery of oil here in the Bahamas.
Well, first of all, let's go back to the history of why of oil exploration in the Bahamas. We share a same type of plate with the Gulf of Mexico, and you have oil in the Gulf of Mexico and even in areas of Florida that has prohibition on exploring for oil offshore.
Right.
We share the same tectonic plates or whatever it is with Cuba, and we see Cuba has oil. So it's only natural that the Bahamas have oil. But the type of oil that we had in the Bahamas was one that when they came and explored in Andros and some of the very same places that we're now looking at again, you understand the technology did not exist 70 years ago. So let's use an example is the tar oils of Canada. When they first discovered them, the technology to make it fiscally viable did not exist. But as we evolved the technology, they were able to then embrace that technology to become one of the major producers of oil in the world. So we have these oil deposits in the Bahamas, and it's found to be oil and it's found to be viable based on basic new type of testing that's now available. And now it becomes cost competitive now for the harvesting of those oil. When they found those oils in the 40s and 50s and 60s, remember oil was $5, $2, $1 a barrel. So it didn't make sense to spend $5 to take a $3 barrel of oil out of the ground.
Yes.
And even as technology evolved, and so the price of technology has come down, where if you show me my phone there, this right here is, we use these and we call these phones, but these are actually computers. And so here it is that, remember, when we found oil, man wasn't on the moon, none of the technology exists. And we now have the computational ability from a computer in our hands. So this shows you the advancement of technology. And so the technology now is advanced that we can use new processes to now harvest this oil that makes it viable. And essentially, the oil companies now are here basically just trying to utilize new technology. In fact, I put to you that the oil companies are not using technology because I hear about them spudding. And for me, they're going to be using a technology that is kind of antiquated. And the reason is I say it's antiquated is because, just give me 1 second, let me pause this. The reason I say it's antiquated is because they want to do sputtering and verification. Technology exists now where you could drive a boat over the Bahamas and get the same type of results, but it's a more expensive process. So they're basically using a process that's viable to them, least expensive for them to get it for them to achieve their goal. And so, but now that we know where these oil is, so we could just verify to the quantity and the viability of it, the quantity and quality, we could then do a calculation for the viability utilizing the newest technology. For me, I'm one to believe that no matter what happens, we do need to find out the quantity, because what it has to do is we can now consider putting that as part of our sovereign wealth fund, because the fact that we have these deposits does not, the fact that we cannot harvest these deposits does not negate the value of them in there. And anyone in the oil business, there's thousands of oil wells, or at least hundreds of oil wells around the world that has been capped. So they become reserved. You have countries that are running out of oil. And so as, you know, we may have the oil in the Bahamas now, we don't need to rush to drill it. We may not be alive to experience the actual drilling of oil. But in the futures market, once we verify that we have this quality and quantity here, we can attach a value to it, and in 20 years, 30 years, as technology evolves, we can then move to harvest it in a whole different type of environment. And so it's just adding it to a sovereign fund. Just remember, the Bahamas is going to be here hopefully for the next 50 years, 100 years. So it isn't about us enjoying the benefits, because we have so many other resources that we're going to touch on that we can begin to harvest in a more viable way to protect our economy. And so, but no matter what, in today's marketplace, what we have in the Bahamas is worth a few $1 trillion, even more on the thing.
Room temperature.
Wow, please.
Room temperature.
Yeah. And so what it does, it allows us to simply put it in the marketplace. And then now we have that. And this is where hopefully we'll have a conversation on a sovereign wealth fund and a sovereign asset management company. Because now we can move that into the futures market. And as Qatar and all these other people begin to deplete their oil supply, as even though we will move to what's called green energy, it'll become very soon very viable that no matter what we think about going green, it's not going to be an instant thing. So it's a transition where, as we begin to reduce our consumption of the hydrocarbons and increase our input of the green energy until you move like this. You notice that when you have here, it doesn't disappear. And so you keep increasing and this decrease.
Yes.
And so it is in 5, 10, 15 years. It's a 20, 30 year. So we are still in the game. We're still in the game for the sale of our hydrocarbons, because no matter what we do, how do you tell another country that doesn't have the viability to adopt the green energy regardless of the cost, that they need to adopt green energy? They're still going to have a need for the hydrocarbons. And so, yes, the world will eventually go 100% green, but it's not something that in 5, 10, 15, 30 years. It is a whole process, even 50 years. And so we have to begin to look at it from a global and futuristic perspective as to our value. So to me, the $1 trillion is monies that we can pre-sell, borrow, whatever, against for the development of our country. And so it isn't a rush to oil. Because like when you talk about aragonite, in one particular area by Ocean Key on the Bahama Bank, I have a verified quantity survey done by the current leaseholder that verifies that there's 100 billion tons that's currently on deposit there.
100 billion tons of aragonite.
That's currently on deposit. That's why I was very disturbed for the fact that when the last administration signed the lease for Ocean Key under the premise that you were creating a so-called green environment, I was very concerned about that, because the companies for which they signed this lease with, for this whole green island of Ocean Key, is also in the shipping business. Also from these reports that I've read, I've seen where they have alluded to the flora that's in that area that's now covered for aragonite. It technically has not died.
What's the name of this shipping company?
MSC.
MSC.
That's building the so-called Green Island for us to be involved with for 300 jobs. So essentially what you're then doing now is moving this into an environment where you say you're doing a Green Island, and you give them this I think it's somewhere around 9,000 miles of lease that this island includes. No one has seen the head of the agreement yet for us to know does this island include this 9,000 square miles.
What's the name of this island?
Ocean Key.
Ocean Key.
Right. Now, what I want people to do is, if you go to Sports Illustrated, July 7th, 1970, you could see an article called Dredging Money from the Bank. And in 1970, before the advent of technology and what it is that of use of aragonite, we had a value of a few $1 billion. That's the bottom value.
Right.
Since 1970, aragonite and sand is in about 90% of everything that we consume in the world. 90%. The plastic bottles, the cell phones.
Can I just say something? A lot of people want to basically try and understand why do we say aragonite and sand makes money. I think that's the simplest form I could put it.
Right, I'm going to come
everyone.
to that, but first we need to
yes.
the value.
Okay.
So what we have is, if you go to Sports Illustrated, and you have this value of a few $1 billion. And this is before, in answering that question, what is aragonite used for?
Right.
All you have to do is go to Google or go to YouTube and search for what is called sand wars. And you'll find out that everything we know today involves sand or aragonite. Every building built, every automobile, every plane, the clothes you wear, the food you eat for processing. Aragonite is the most important thing in the food production of the world. Aragonite serves as a mitigator for ocean warming, which is for sulfication or for acidity in the ocean. That is brilliant. There's a report out there that actually says that the proper use of aragonite can actually slow global warming, if not reverse it. And in the Bahamas, we produce this at 93% purity. Medical grade aragonite is 92%. All around the world, they produce aragonite, but no one produces it in the quantity or the quality that the Bahamas produces. And so what it does, it allows for literally for you to take aragonite from the Bahamas straight into production with very little cleaning and purification process. You know, when you have something 60%, 70%, 80%, you then now have to go through this whole process of cleaning it up to get it to the 92-3%. And so essentially, the aragonite in the Bahamas have very little or no microbacterial type environment. None of those type of things are in the aragonite in the Bahamas. I mean, there's no other country in the world can provide the quality and the quantity of aragonite. This goes back to what I was saying to you, is that we live on the top of the hill in a river. And so essentially the aragonite in the sand is just simply rolling to deeper depths. And as technology evolves, and we can start developing the technology if we have a proper sovereign wealth fund and a sovereign asset management to basically invest in these type of technologies. Because remember now, countries such as Qatar and other places, they created new type of innovation to harvest oil to get the maximum use and the maximum value from it. And so we then can now move to innovation within the intelligence of the Bahamas to come up with new ideas as to how we have future-focused use of these resources. And so even with the 5 billion tons of sand, we all know in the Bahamas that what sand sells for, $20, $30, $25 a ton. And so when you begin to look at the fact that we could harvest $5 billion a year sustainably and not disturb our environment, it becomes a very possible and viable opportunity, not just for sand alone, but the aragonite is in the billions of tons for us to harvest. And there is 100 billion in one particular area going back to Ocean Key that I began to speak of. And you have this fauna that has not been killed. Some research has proved the fauna is there. My concern is that if this Ocean Key includes the 9,000 square feet, the 9,092 or whatever miles of square miles, and MSC, the largest shipping company in the world, decides to use the expression that we want to now restore the whole area, it becomes an excuse to say you're removing the aragonite, the billions of tons of aragonite from there, to restore the flora in your nature environment, which then gives you access to billions of tons of aragonite that you could move out of the country as part of your cleanup process, but no cost.
So in essence, they're basically deceiving.
Yeah, my mom and father told me that half the truth is a full lie. Half the truth is a full lie. And an omission and deception is also lies. The beauty about the truth is it has to be 100%, or it's not the truth. You know, there's no degrees of truth. It's 100% truth, or it's something else. And so we have not been given the truth concerning our natural resources. There is 17 or more that I know off my head. And just the sidebar, the reefs in the Bahamas, if you go to reef keepers or something like that, just from the reefs alone in the Bahamas, currently, today, $500 million a year is generated from the reefs alone in the Bahamas.
$500
million.
Half a billion.
$500 million is generated. This is not my survey. This is, I don't remember which one of these international nature environmental agencies that actually is situated on Thompson Boulevard. And this is their report stated on their international website concerning the economic impact of reefs in the Bahamas. And then when you begin to look at the fact that we are the third largest reef nursery in the world, you could almost conservatively say that 25% of the fish in the world are Bahamian born. You know, and so, because we have the nursery. And so when we begin to talk about the harvesting of these whole type of environment, we have to have what is called sensible conversation. And, you know, with all due respect, and I hear people and I hear our leaders talk about the non-existence of resources. And I really have no anger with them, because on May 10th, when they were sitting under the tree, they didn't understand then. I don't see how 10 months later that they would have the intellectual capacity to digest what 15 years of research it is. So I use the expression, I'm no more angry with them than I am of my 14-month-old daughter that still defecates in her pampers. She doesn't know any better.
But you made mention earlier, as it relates to it being nonsensical to, well, we're talking, you made mention of the fact that back in the 40s, it made no sense to literally mine oil at $5 a barrel or whatever have you. You're spending three and whatever. In terms of, you said that they needed an advancement in technology, or
yes, what happens to advancement? Because remember, they were just using the pumping, and because the aragonite also posed a threat. The aragonite and the calcium that we have in the Bahamas is porous, so they could never get the pressure. You know, those gushes that shoot up and whatever. We could have oil that seep out of the Bahamas, and it's almost like you had to suck it up through a straw. So when you take this right here, when other people have it, you squeeze it, the oil shoots up. So the oil is sitting there, and so you need the technology to harvest it. And back then, we didn't have the pumps, we didn't have the technology, we didn't have none of those things that existed.
But we do have it now.
But we have it now, and when oil went up and down. And so now what we have to do is look at the feasibility of how can we penetrate the market, because it's more than just having the oil. Remember, there's cartels that control the oil industries.
Okay.
You know, right? And so we have to basically, this is where sovereign asset management comes in, where you have international negotiators that looks for smaller industries for you to penetrate, while negotiating for you to become part of maybe an OPEC producing nation, and so that you can produce at a lower capacity. Like a lot of times people don't understand that Trinidad and Tobago answers to OPEC, and one time they took a position that they wanted to overproduce, and the people just stopped taking delivery of their oil, and so they had to go back and meet the quotas that's been assigned to them. So in spite of us having the largest oil find that's probably in the known world, OPEC will dictate the volume for which we can enter the marketplace. And so it doesn't negate the value, because see, what we're trying to do is we're trying to make a determination of the value of the country and how we could leverage this value for the improvement and the development of Bahamians. And you don't necessarily always have to have the tangible assets. But when you go in the securities market, every single day, trillions of dollars is bet that oil is going to go up, oil is going to go down. And as oil becomes more scarce, us sitting on these reserves makes us the future Saudi Arabias and Qatars of the world for those companies that will still depend on hydrocarbons.
Okay. You also in 2002, if I'm not mistaken, the price of a barrel of oil was anywhere between $100 to $150 per barrel.
Right.
All right. Now, some 16 years later, the market value on a barrel of oil is now $65. The Bahamas Petroleum Company, that is registered in the London Stock Exchange, they released an article in January of this year stating that their licenses for the Southern Bahamas has been renewed by this administration, and they also announced to their shareholders that they suspect on the high end some 28 million, or 20, I think it's 28 billion barrels of oil that they can extract from such wells.
28 billion?
Yeah. And given today's market value at $65, that equates to some $1.8 trillion.
Right.
Bahamians want to know how it is that they, as Bahamian citizens, can benefit from revenues generated from their natural resources.
But in the current arrangements, it's a pimp prostitute game. And honestly, this is not even prostitution. This is actually abuse for the arrangements that we have. You know, and I really don't know who negotiated these deals. We really have to get to the root of these. Because essentially, what you have is you take a product that you own 100% of, and you give it away with the expectation that they give you 12.5%.
But in Norway, they're getting 60%.
No, because what happens is, no, actually Norway may even get as much up to, some of these people get up to 70, because you get 60% of the raw production, plus you still, those, whatever they take is still subject to taxes.
Yes, yes.
And so the net is this, on average, you could say that if you want to use 65 as the low end, when you look at it, you should be getting 65% of anything else. Secondly, we have a pricing, I think, at the well, which means that any product added value, say, let's believe the fantasy of the refinery, when that's added value that is refined and done within your country, but you take the oil and extract all of these variables, that you take a $55 barrel of oil, and it now weighs $300, $400 based on of the breakdown of it, from kerosene and gasoline to soaps and fats and all these other different things, and even petroleum jelly. And so we're basically telling them that you can get the oil, even maybe process it in our country, and they pay us at the well, whatever the price is, a percentage of that, and then they have added value, and then we just give them under these incentive acts that they could take 100% of the profit of the country and be subject to no taxes. It's prostitution. It's prostitution of your resources and prostitution of your future. And it simply shows, and this is where I'm a strong advocate for not just a sovereign wealth fund, but for credible sovereign asset management companies to act on our behalf, to preserve the value of our assets. I'm disappointed to hear that this group of 5-year celebrities took upon themselves, knowing nothing but oil beyond the fact that they put it in their car and maybe fry their food with another variation of oil, now believe they have the expertise to actually make this decision in cabinet to extend a lease. I mean, for me, the oil company is playing a shell game where they're actually making money. Now, let's use an example, right? I take 100 million shares that's worth less than a penny, and I offer it on the OTC, over-the-counter stock exchange. And then I come to the Bahamas with an empty briefcase and a promise, and maybe some opportunities to make some politicians rich off the record, deposited somewhere else in the world. So I come to Omar. Omar is the minister. And I say to Omar, well, guess what? I explained to you that, Omar, you know, I don't have any cash right away because I need the cash to do this, whatever story I give you. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give you 10 million shares for free. This is a gift. Right now, it's worth $10,000. Then I come into the Prime Minister's office and I get a heads of agreement. I then go back to the marketplace and I said, everyone, I have a heads of agreement to mine oil in the Bahamas. I have a heads of agreement to build a refinery in the Bahamas. And now that stock sells for 15 cents. Now, what is your 10 million shares worth? $1.5 million. And so, but there's no way for these LLCs or SPCs or whatever they call it, offshore companies, allows him now to benefit. And these guys just haven't spot a single oil and continuously get renewal, and it becomes a marketing game where you're foreigners amongst us making millions of dollars just making an announcement that we could simply hire individuals. You know, and I asked Bahamians to just go to see the United States leasing program. These people pay hundreds of millions and billions of dollars for the opportunity to look for oil in the U.S. waters. Not fine. They pay the U.S. government for these lease areas tens and hundreds of millions of dollars to look for oil. Then when they find the oil, then they negotiate how it's going to be shared. We're telling the people, just come in, take us to lunch, and there has to be some form of corruption. And the word corrupt means unfit for its purpose. Clearly, these deals is corrupt. These are unfit for its purpose of the development and empowerment of behemoths. These are corrupt deals. And so we have to ask ourselves, you know, do we have this level of incompetence in leadership, or do we have this level of corruption? They would have to answer for me that either they are corrupt, incapable unable, or inept. I mean, they could choose whatever category they want. I prefer them to tell me they're inept as opposed to corrupt.
Yep. So rather than being corrupt or so forth, they're either corrupt or it's just a nation of backward individuals.
Right.
Period.
But when you begin to look at unexplained wealth among our leadership, I'm leaning towards corruption. Because you have see, understand this, right? I know the day is not the day, but one day we have to look at the economy. I know for 15 years, I've argued that the $8 billion economy was garbage. I put our economy at $15 billion. I'm a person that specializes in data. Finally, we have a new central government governor who came and said, oh, it's not $8 billion, it's $11 billion, 11 and a half. He hasn't told us how, why, whatever formula, because again, they haven't included the informal market. We haven't even included revenue. It's something called the gross national income, not GDP, of all revenue that's generated around the world directly related to the Bahamas. I would put to you that that could very much be as much as $300 billion a year. But Bahamians getting no benefits of it. No benefits.
May I ask the question? How are we able to borrow this money from the World Bank?
Well, let's use a December conversation on Guardian Talk Radio with the Minister of Investments. When a caller called into the radio station and accused all previous administration of being incompetent, and he says that it's y'all who run up the $8 billion debt. Mr. Brent Simmet responded was that it's stupid, it's foolishness, because the Bahamas has a value of $3 trillion today as it is. So that $8 billion means nothing. That's his statement. He says we have a value of $3 trillion. The fact that you haven't been told or explained to you or given the opportunity to leverage that is another question for us to have a conversation concerning the failure of leadership over 50 years. But we have to look, and you know, and one of the things that our greatest detriment is, you know, a failure to basically know our history. We have a group of revisionist historians in the Bahamas, and we talk about wealth has been generated before the Bahamas. But I know, you know, it's not a personal affront, it's an actual fact in record that you can find on bahamianology.com. Is let's look at our leadership. The Brent Simmet father had a declared value between $700 million and $2 billion is his net worth in 1972. Where did you make $2 billion in the Bahamas?
Good question.
In 20, 30, 40 years. And that in that economy, remember, this technology where we create this type of wealth today didn't exist. And so, you know, there's not a value system. We have always been in a geopolitical position from the time we were, from the time we found Columbus lost at sea. And we've always been in a geopolitical position.
Columbus lost at sea.
And
I'm sorry.
And we've always been in a geopolitical position. And then you could almost, you know, we can one day have a conversation on this oil refinery. But look at the Northwest Passage. Billions of dollars passes, and this is an actual asset, a natural resource, and passes through our waters. We do not get a dime for the sovereignty of our nations and our waters. Other countries, if you pass in their waters with a dinghy, you have to pay a fee. We don't get a dime. We supply 80% of the food and everything through our waters to the East Coast. We get nothing. We have ships in our country today that does something called littering or lightering, where billions of tons of oil is taken from larger ships, put on smaller ships, and sent to the U.S. and other destinations that we get nothing for. Now, there are some people that we honor as supermen and philanthropists in our country that has killed the opportunity. And Aaron Ferguson and I was fighters for this, for the pilots in the Bahamas to be put on every ship entering Bahamian waters. And we had the oligarchy that actually fought us, that have control of the Pilot Association and all of our docks and stuff to make sure that Bahamians don't enter that market. And they do it through the House of Assembly, through Parliament. And when you look at the lightering or you look at the passage right beneath Grand Bahama, the opportunity is literally unlimited. At one time, we sat on the deepest harbor, the third deepest harbor in the world, for thousands of years, and we did nothing. Miami has matched us, and some other places is moving to match us to handle what is called post-Panamax ships that was too big to go into their harbor. So what happens was we have, even at the container port, where we have these containers and we get like 50 cents a container. It is unbelievable for what we get in taxes from those containers compared to other countries that may get hundreds if not thousands of dollars per container that's transitioning through their country. And these ships came and unload into smaller ships that allow them to go through the Panama Canal. They couldn't make it through this is why they call them post-Panamax, because these ships were so big they were built after that. Now we're having some even bigger ships, Neo-Panamax, that is being built. Guess what? No dredging necessary for those ships to have access to the Bahamas and its deep waters. And so we have not used our geopolitical location. This is one of our most valuable assets, is that if America can't feed itself, we are in the way of commerce. We play a strategic role in that. And this is why the refinery came here, this is why the bunkering came here, this is why whatever it is. But what happens is you have a small group of people that is, for me, they're waiting for a generation of individuals that know to die out. And then you have your children growing up in a period of oppression for 30, 40, 50 years. So they always know this oppression, they never know the value, and this knowledge dies out. The problem is that the advent of Google and Facebook and other platforms has shifted, has put information. Now go and read Sports Illustrated. We can now go and read these geo reports that's been on the computers in the United States colleges and universities' computers. And so now you have a more knowledgeable behemoth, though a small subset, like yourself, myself, Colebrook and Prescott and Tomiko and all these other individuals that's driving the conversation, now makes it harder for them to deny it. And I can tell you, 3 years ago, you listened to the radio station, you had people with lease, like Mr. Myers and other people who outright said that we were lunatics. And now having a different conversation saying, well, we may have it, but it can't be used for what they all say. And so but they're not bringing the information in the forefront. And so what you're having now is manipulations of contracts where individuals are moving for contracts. So when you look at the MSC contract, Mr. Myers and others only had less than maybe 25 years left on that 99-year lease that they bought from the company that had been defunct or whatever. The problem that MSC was looking for a 99-year lease. And you heard Mr. Perry Christie said, I hope that the Bahamas, that the Bahamian people, this is a quote on television, he hoped the Bahamian people benefit as much as the leaseholders benefit. Meaning that this is the type of money that they would make. Can you imagine a country, a sovereign country, hoping that the country that has sovereignty, that they exercise in the Bahama deal, okay? Remember now, we exercise sovereign nation status to take a case out of the U.S. court and deposit it in the Bahamas. And so we do have the ability to act in sovereignty. And as we have so we can begin to set rules of passage through our borders. You have countries, other countries, like where cruise ship came and we pay cruise ships. Whether the people get off the cruise ship or not, we pay them. We pay per head. But we say we got 6 million people. 6 million people. 6 million people a year do not put foot in the Bahamas. What we have is because they're on ships registered in the Bahamas and they pass into Bahamian waters, we say they're in the Bahamas. They're not. Okay? And we pay a cruise ship for a number of people on the ship, not the number of people come off. But guess what? If you tell that cruise ship, we don't need your people, we're not going to pay you. And by the way, if you have a problem with us, go around the Bahamas. Go around our economic zone. Go around 100 miles offshore from us. And you'll see nothing but empty ocean. You'll do nothing but burn gas. You'll burn all your profits going around us.
Right.
It's just a matter of having leadership that understands your position in the world. Let me use another example. If you go to Florida, there's some cruise ship that comes to the Bahamas. They have nowhere cruises on those exact same cruises that go for the same amount of time. They call them nowhere cruises. And you pay $25 to $35 for that cruise. The exact same cruise puts the word Bahamas. We'll be making a stop in the Bahamas and charge $300 for the same cruise. They're saving gas, because when they want a nowhere cruise, they're just going around in a circle. So when they come here, they turn off the engine, save gas while the people run around, and they collect $300 instead. The word Bahamas adds value to the Nowhere Cruise.
Wow.
And so
And we get nothing
we,
for it.
we are a brand within ourselves that you have to recognize. In fact, we are so powerful a brand for those of us when the internet was beginning to develop, we recognize it. Go to Facebook and try to register the word Bahamas. You can't use it. And a vanity name. It's a vanity name. Go to some other digital important website. They've slowly been falling away because now you could go to some other sites and register like Twitter and use the word Bahamas and other things. Right? And because we are not exercising the sovereignty in this whole new dispensation. And so you talk about it. Let's go back to this island, right? I want people to understand the value of Ocean Key.
Yeah.
Ocean Key was worth, I can't remember whether 3 billion or 2 billion. Let's use the 3 billion figure. Value doubles every 7 years. Not even with the compression of time that has happened because of technology. And compression of time is where it normally takes 5 years to do something, you can now do it in 3. Because technology has caused time to be compressed. And so if you say value doubles every 7 years, right? Let's use the $5 billion figure. 1970 to 1977, it's now worth 10. From 77 to 84, it's now worth 20. Then 40, then 80, then 100 billion, then 200 billion, and you just multiply that by the 17 multiples that has happened. And you can see that the value in Ocean Key alone is well over $1 trillion. In its natural, in its current value based on today's dollars. But we have people talking about lease and the government getting $100,000 a year and this year and whatever else. It is absolute garbage. We have to be insane around the world. They have to. I think a lot of people may not even do business with us because they have us as insane at the things we do because it doesn't make sense in what it is that we do. And we're just talking right now. We only talked about oil. We only talked about oil and aragonite, okay? And that, I mean, the aragonite value, because as fast as we could sustainably move the aragonite, the next time the sun come out, it'll replace it. It'll replace us. We don't need to be cutting harbor. See, understand, the invaders, the economic parasites within our borders, they are choosing to build canals and cut our land and whatever because they doesn't care. Let me tell you something. They don't care about us. If you go to YouTube and search for C. Allen Johnson Bahama Rocktown meeting, Mr. Reed, who was the general manager at that particular time, I said to him, you're digging 80 feet into the ground when your permit, I think as I know it, only allow you to go 30 feet down. And somebody said, no, it's 6 years, it doesn't matter, he's digging 80 feet. And I said to Mr. Reed, and this was the guy in charge of Bahama Rock, what are we to do with this big vacuum hole in the ground? This is on YouTube tape. He looked me right in the face, you know what he told me? Use it as a lesson as to what not to do the next person who comes for environmental. That's what he said.
Wow.
Because if I'm leaving, and since we're on social media, let me use an expression, right? There's a story told that a guy went to get his hair cut. And while he's getting his hair cut, the barber took a minute and went and urinated in the corner. The guy sitting in the chair was appalled. And so the barber came to finish his hair. He looked at it and said, did you urinate in the corner? The barber said, man, my lease up, I'm leaving at the end of this week. So he finished, get his hair cut. He gave the barber 20, and the barber went to get changed. He went in the corner and took a dunk. And the barber screamed at him, what the hell are you doing? He says, man, I leaving now. And this is what these people are doing to us. They have no care.
You're right. They're leaving now, so they're dumping on us.
They taking what is necessary.
I understood.
And they have to take sustainable harvesting practices.
Right.
Because it's less profit, the margin is slightly. The reason why we would use sustainable harvest, because we know we're looking for our children and grandchildren. We're looking to maintain our environment.
Right.
But they're saying, man, I'm going to be dead in 50 years.
Yeah.
What I care about global warming? What I care about the Bahamas? I need my money now.
Right now. You're right.
But we are submitting to that, as opposed to using the collective intelligence of the Bahamian people to recognize the role we play geopolitically and globally with the resources that we have. And that's from aragonite. And if aragonite has no value and it's just dirt, I invite the mining companies to cease and desist in the morning. And for those jobs, just overbroke suckers in the just overbroke system, it's garbage. If you stop them from taking the $1 billion, you could give $1 billion is 1,000 million. Let's give 1,000 families $1 million each then. Or let's give 10,000 families $100,000 each.
Okay, guys, so we're here at the Q Lounge across from Dolly Madison. If you guys want to come in and view this for yourselves. Mr. Omar Archer, we're about to have occupying of Bay Street on March 15th.
Yes, it's an event that myself and several other organizers, decided to engage in. Initially, we wanted to do a second town hall meeting on natural resources. And the response we got from our initial town hall meeting that we held at Epworth Hall on Shirley Street, persons were saying, well, this is what is going on here in our country. We don't want to talk anymore. You know, it's time for us to go out as Bahamians, not PLPs, FNMs, or whatever other political party, forget their political persuasions. They just wanted to go out there, wanted us to organize an event, whereas we can go out there and make a statement, not just go out and make promises like was done at the We March, when then Senator Renard Henfield said, well, we give the government another week. Came back another week later, well, we give another month. And at each gathering, I realized then that, that month is going to turn into forever. And then eventually he was appointed to the Senate, and We March just fizzled away.
Okay.
That is not going to happen March 15th through the 22nd. We intend to occupy Bay Street not just in the morning, then come back that evening. We intend to occupy Bay Street for 24 hours, from morning until morning, for 7 straight days non-stop, until our demands are met. If that means Bay Street has to shut down for those days and those merchants don't make any money, that is their problem. But the majority of who rules in this country, and the majority of the people in this country are suffering, and they want to hold their government accountable. It's not necessarily just this administration, but it happened over successive administrations, and it's now to a tipping point. Whereas they say, okay, regardless of who is in power, we need to hold this government accountable.
Yes,
they want to repeal the International Personal Land Holding Agreement Act, and which was in place since January 1st of 1994, some 24 years, 3 months, and 2 days now. And since then, some $6.7 billion worth of undeveloped Bahamian land has been sold to foreigners. You see now that what you saw back in the 30s and the 40s, no trespassing. You couldn't even cross Collins Avenue. But now you're seeing that on islands and keys just off Exuma and Abacos and so forth, where foreigners own our islands and keys, and they're saying to Bahamians there's no trespassing. So if your boat tends to, you're out with your family on a fishing trip, and your boat runs out of fuel, and you happen to drift on one of these islands and keys that are privately owned, they have the right to tell you, pull your anchor up and leave.
Wow.
And the amazing thing is, that $6.7 billion has never been reflected in our Bahamian treasury. And today, some 55% of undeveloped Bahamian land has been sold, and at this pace, in another 20 years, we'll have a country owned by foreigners. But we're asking our children to pay off a national debt in the billions. That's like telling them to go into Sampin Motors and paying for a Jeep in Sampin Motors, but somebody else can drive off with it while they're stuck with the wheel.
Wow.
That to me is not fair, and we need to do whatever we can in terms of safeguarding the future of the next generation of Bahamians. Secondly, we also want to hold this administration, particularly Prime Minister Minnis, accountable. He made some promises on the election trail. He said that his government, if elected, they would enact the Freedom of Information Act. They would also put in place a recall system. It's been now almost 10 months. I can vividly remember 2 weeks after the general election last year, he held up a red cap and said 35-4, meaning his government holds 35 seats in the House of Assembly. Okay, that's basically almost 8 times the majority, almost 9. the majority in the House of Assembly. So there's no way he can tell we, you, me, or our children that, hey, this is going to take time. In 2012, prior to leaving office, then Prime Minister Hubert Alexander Ingram had already drafted the bill for the Freedom of Information Act, had already drafted it, and Perry Christie promised we're going to put Bahamians first, and we're going to make sure that the Freedom of Information Act is put in place. From 2012 to 2017, it's not happened. In 2017, Hubert Alexander Minnis then said on the campaign trail, he said, it is the people's time because you matter. And we're going to make sure to put these acts in place. It's been now 10 months and it's not happening. I'm saying that to say this. Those and quite a number of particularly natural resources, because a lot of Bahamians understand now that they should, like citizens in Alaska, like those citizens in Saudi Arabia and the other 7 countries that make up the United Arab Emirates.
United Arab States.
UAE. all those countries that make up the Emirates do not have as much natural resources as the Bahamas has. We have more than all of them combined.
And that's
oil,
something.
aragonite, you name it, goes on sand, this, that, it goes on and on. The Bahamas is not just the richest country in the face of the planet per capita. It is the richest country in the face of the planet in general, period. There's no reason why Bahamians should be suffering the way that they have been suffering over the years. I've heard someone make the comment that we really should have just left the UBP in place. Because under the UBP, we knew exactly what we were getting. Some 50 years later, after the majority rule, we have more or less regress than progress.
Agreed.
So now here we are now. We're now saying that we as a people, we want to come together and we want to say to this government and for any other government from here on in, yes, we understand now that we are the people, we hold the power in this country. And when we do occupy Bay Street, no, it's not a protest and it's not a march. It is an occupation. Yes, it's going to gain international headlines, and rightfully so. And our demands will be listed, and we're not moving until those demands are met. And we're not taking any excuses. We're not coming back next week. We're not coming back next month. When we leave, we want to leave satisfied.
Agreed.
And that is the importance of the occupation in itself. And that is why it's so important to have all Bahamians from all walks of life, white, black, you name it, to come on out to Bay Street and assist us with the occupation of Bay Street.
Okay. So you're here now in Freeport, Grand Bahama. Will you be making other stops, different islands?
Yes. Well, I have now at least 13 more days. And within that 13 days, I intend to travel to Abaco. I intend to go to Eleuthera, just to more or less sensitize the people about the importance of the occupation and let them know that, just like it was when Bahamian workers were being paid 10 times less than foreign workers for the exact same work in the 1940s, that eventually led to the Burma Road riot. They went to Bay Street. It was a non-violent, peaceful protest, but it was a tourist who threw a Coca-Cola bottle at a shop window and shattered that glass, and that sparked a riot known today as the Burma Road riot. Oh. We want to go out on Bay Street, to occupy Bay Street with the same mindset in terms of it being a peaceful and non-violent occupation. All right, and we're going to literally explain to folks that are going to participate that we know emotions are going to be very high. We know that officers will be given instructions to arrest persons, and that being the case, there's no need to resist because you only can be detained for 48 hours. We have several attorneys. Our lead attorney on record is Mr. Howard Thompson. He himself has liaised with other attorneys, and we have a mechanism that we're putting in place to ensure a smooth transition from arrest, detention, and release, and back to the occupation. We're not stopping. We're not stopping. If you see after 7 days of occupation on Bay Street, we still do not get our desired results, the occupation continues, but it expands. We then block both bridges. the new and the old bridge. We then block the airport, the entrance and the exit to the airports, while we're blocking, while we're occupying Bay Street. So it's going to be widespread and get to the point if we have to shut down the entire country until we get what is rightfully ours and what we deserve as citizens. And we're tired of being treated like third and fourth class citizens.
And secondly, as Omar and those in the new province begin to organize themselves, there's those of us that actually have expertise in the digital arena. We'll begin a second campaign of getting individuals to come together digitally to begin to express the ideas and the solutions that is necessary that we want to address. A powerful statement that often is used, it says a problem clearly defined is 90% of the solution. And so we want to be able to define each problem area that we have within our country. You know, as we talked about the Removable Property Act and the selling of our birthrights, if you have no land, you have no country. Land is the essence of sovereignty. And so as we begin to have this conversation as to what, not only do we repeal, what do we want to replace it with? We want to look at things as CLTs, which is called Community Land Trust. We want to look at moving land and reacquiring land by leveraging the same resources we have as aragonite, as salt, as fisheries, and these things to create what is necessary for us to reacquire these lands and put them in a sovereign wealth trust so that we can begin to have partnership of ownership and own them perpetually forever for our children yet to be born. And so it isn't just simply a repeal, it is actually an organized approach as to how we want it to be replaced. And this is the promise that our forefathers and those that govern us, they not only promise, they promise us a two-step process. They promise us first the freedom, independence. The second aspect of economic and economic development has yet to occur. And it's simply, you have a new generation of thinkers, a new generation of behemoths that is demanding involvement in governance. We understand that we give them authority, but we have never relinquished our power. If they were given power, they wouldn't have to come back to us. And we want them to understand that we are moving away from the slave mentality, and governance without consent of the governed is the definition of slavery. And we are declaring ourselves free, sovereign individuals in a free and sovereign country, and we are demanding ownership. And it's not, because you know we have an argument that yes, it's owned by behemoths, and we're talking about equity. We're talking about not equality. We are talking about equity in our country. We want to own. How is it that we can have a country that's worth $3 billion based on the Minister of Financial Services? $1 trillion. And for me, that has to be simply the landmass that he's talking about that sits in the office of the Prime Minister. Because there's trillions of dollars in the aragonite. There's trillions of dollars in the salt. There's trillions of dollars in the fisheries. There's trillions of dollars in our geolocation. There's trillions of dollars in our airspace. These are all assets, sovereign assets of the Bahamas that we have to now harness and bring into ownership and control within our country. Not just for the current behemoths, but for future behemoths.
Then speak to the plan of correcting all this or to...
We have ideas. I know I have a whole lot of ideas. I've spent 15 to 20 years researching my country. And I don't just research, I'm talking about data and spending monies. But what we want to do is we want to have points, as I talk about this community land trust, and we want to build on it, because what we're looking to do is harness the collective intelligence of the entire behemoth. So this does not become a C. Allen idea. It does not become an Omar Archer idea. It is our idea. So that when we begin to look at it, each of us can see the contribution. And if our idea is not, if another idea is superior to ours, we must submit that idea for the collective, because we're going to all know whether or not we benefit. A good thought process for us to take is that every plan that we envision or harness or move or whatever is that when you take a group picture, and I show you a group picture, 99% of the individual, the first thing they do is look for themselves. Any plan for the development of the country, if you personally don't see yourself, it is not for you.
Great.
Okay? It is not for you. That's like simply saying you come to a restaurant or I bring dinner home and you now saying I brought food is in the house, but everybody gets a plate except for you. Well, the food is in the house, but you have no benefit of it. And that is the way we have been developing ourselves. And what we're saying is that, you know, there's something called quality of life. That we have enough resources. And so many of us could enjoy a better quality of life if we had access to things. If we tap into our salt, where we could begin to utilize that to buy the technology that's necessary for us to go green with solar energy and energy reduction or consumption in the house with LED lights and the lights. What happens to a family where their light bill, without ever turning off the electricity, is only $100? I don't have to give them any extra money. I've just reduced what it costs for them to live.
Right.
What happens if we make land available that comes part of this community land trust, where every behemoth can have access to that quarter acre, and they can't sell it to a foreigner because the community land trust or whatever sovereign fund has the first right of purchase.
That brings me to our crown land situation. Why does it seem so hard for Bahamians to get crown land?
Because what we have really never declared, you know. In fact, I am one to argue, and this is a debate I would love to have with some QCs such as Maurice Clinton and Fred Smith and the other, and Gomez, and even some of those that deserve maybe QCs that have yet to get it, you know, that we can have this conversation. I am one to believe that the Queen's sovereignty can never be violated. And all of the land that we have given away and otherwise have yet to be authenticated because we have never declared and separated this crown land away from the Queen. Countries like Australia and even America, what they did was they took the land and transferred it into another trust that severed the Queen, that then give them, it's called the Department of the Interior in the US and other places. We have never done that. We have a system of governance in the Bahamas. So let me just describe it for some people. You have to understand, before independence, we had a parliamentary democracy where the Queen sent us a governor. And the governor's job was to make sure there was no uprising among the natives. And he wrote a report home for 5 years. Notice the 5 years is the same as our term. That nothing happened. The natives didn't rise up, there was no uprising, and we have extricated all of the wealth we could in those 5 years and sent it to the motherland. Mm-hmm. And if he was happened to be able to do that for 2 terms, he may have been given lordship. It is funny that we declared independence and kept a system where nothing's supposed to happen for the natives, and the wealth is supposed to be taken out of the country for the benefit of others. And this is why I find it disingenuous when people say the system isn't working. I beg to differ. The system is working exactly the way it's intended. Mm-hmm. For nothing to happen for you, yep, and for the wealth from the time of Columbus to be taken out of the country. We need a system for Bahamians by Bahamians. Mm-hmm. And what you have is you have 5-year celebrities that actually move into these posts, and we can use that as an animal kingdom. You cannot define an alpha male as part of a pack. And this is where if you take an idiot and put him in a suit, you have an idiot in a suit. If you take an idiot and give him a title, you have an idiot with a title. Now let's take an idiot and put him in a suit and a title. You know, I almost want to simply say, I would call it an MP. What you have is intelligence doesn't come to them on the night of May. If they did not have these abilities, on the 10th of May, there was no crowning of knowledge upon these individuals.
Instant superpowers.
They may have additional access to information, but information and
everybody gone crazy
is the ability to basically translate it.
Exactly.
Information, when properly comprehended, is knowledge. Knowledge, when properly executed, is wisdom. And what we have is we have members of a pack that we have given the title of alpha males. See, an alpha male in the pack eats first, is strengthened, because the alpha male job is to lead and protect the pack. What we have taken is pack members who, after the alpha males eat, seeks to guard themselves up to just and save. So we have taken them and given them alpha male titles with the privileges of alpha males, with the mindset of a pack. Gangs.
You're right.
And so when they get there with the pack mindset, they're trying to collect for themselves, knowing that the alpha male position is temporary. But there's something that has to happen in our country. And we can talk about these resources. Power concedes nothing without a demand. To that I add, power concedes nothing coming from an emasculating constituent. You cannot demand nothing from me on your goddamn knees. Stand up. Okay? And so the problem is we have not, because we have demanded not. What we have in the Bahamas is we have developed gang mentality. The yellow, the red, and now we have this whole concept of the green. In California, it is a death sentence to wear red in another area, even if you don't belong to the gang. That's our country. And we can't understand that when we practice gang leadership from the top, why we have crime and gangs in the country. It rises and falls on leadership. The leadership is demonstrating gang mentality. If you're not part of the F&M, there's nothing for you. There's no participation. We don't even realize. Do you know there's never been a sports team or any competition anywhere of anyone that uses half of his team that's won any championship? But that's what we're doing. We're using half of our teams, half of intelligentsia. We have young people in the house of F&Ms and PLPs, and we keep using the same people. Maybe as much as $1 billion or more have been spent on education in the Bahamas. We go look at our boards. It's the same people for 40 years. What did they do 40 years ago continuously, and they failed, that we still expect for them today? It is insanity to do the same thing and expect a different result. Are you telling me that we don't, after all of this time and monies we've spent, that we no longer possess the intelligentsia? Just people smarter than me, you know. I had the fortunate of having as much education as the rest of them. You know, I always hate school. But what we have is the opportunity to come together as a collective, where we have debate on ideas, on which way, the fact that we decide the direction we want to go, and let's have an argument as what is the best vehicle, F&M, PLP, DNA, NDP, and whatever else, UBP, as the best vehicle to get us there the quickest way. Let's have those debates. Not let's have, you know, I want Bahamians to realize this important thing. And we get back to resources. When we continue the debate we have in the parliament, where you have the F&M and the PLP is having a debate on who is the least incompetent. I want you to understand this question. When you have a debate with another about who is least incompetent, you must first admit that you're both incompetent.
Wow.
And we must stop.
You know, that's a serious thing, you know. That is the debate. Like, every 5 years.
Every 5 years. That they are more incompetent than I am. But you know what you said? I am less incompetent than them. That means I'm incompetent. That's the debate we're having.
Wow.
We see, even when you sit in a vehicle, they give you a windshield, big windshield, small glass, only for you to kind of see what's coming behind you. The windshield gives you a wider view of the future, the direction you're going. We're driving with people looking through the rearview mirror, describing the chaos. See, when he was driving, he saw all that wreck in the back. He did all that wreck.
Yep.
And I can do less wreck. How about no wreck? And we have to change the conversation, because we are feeding this dialogue into the intelligentsia of our nation that is listening. This should be a debate on how do we tap into the resources. Let's talk quickly on salt, right? We are one of 3 places in the world that solar salt is produced. We talk about Inagua. We also have 2 different types of salt, you know. We have the sea salt that's produced, and we have the pond salt. Do you know that the pond salt has about 80 trace minerals and things that no other salt in the world has? Incredible. And the other has like 40?
What?
Yes.
But what we do is we ship them out of the country, refine it, take everything out of it, just salt, right? We ship it out for $2 a metric ton, which is 2,200 pounds, 22,000 pounds, or 2,200 pounds, 2,200 pounds for $2, and then we buy a box of salt for $2.
Or 3 something.
That has been devoid of all of the natural. Ask anyone in the salt industry in the Bahamas. But let's go back to our solar salt. Solar salt has a unique quality unlike any other salt in the world. Here's this thing. We talk about solar energy. Do you know that if you take solar salt, or salt that we see on our beaches, and dig a cavern in the ground, and fill that cavern with the solar salt, and connect a solar energy field to it, as we generate electricity during the daytime, the heat from those extra melts the salt, and in the nighttime, when the sun goes down, the salt begins to harden, and it generates heat that turns the turbine that generates electricity for us to have continuous energy. So we have a natural production of the next generation of solar batteries.
Natural battery.
Wow.
Okay? We have tidal energy. But we're not having these type of conversations. We're having a conversation about who steal the lease.
Or how quickly can we get the hotel up and running?
Right, and so we could come back to, that's the most important thing you spoke of just now. The most important asset we have in our country is the human capital.
Yeah.
Those are the people that he's inviting on Bay Street. When you recognize the human capital, then you realize where the wealth of your nation is. Every resource I can name to you, the fishery, the plant life, and I want to come back to that right there. The plant life, the fishery, the animal life, and all these things means nothing without ideas, intelligence, innovation. And here's what it says. If Omar and I each was to put $1,000 on the table, and we have 2,000, and we come back 10 years later, we'll have 2,000 on the table. So we have taught our people to chase money as opposed to refine ideas. Money doesn't make money. But if we take this $2,000 and put it with an idea of a young Bahamian, we may have $1 million, $2 million. So ideas are the multiplier of money. So we should be having debates on ideas.
Exactly.
Because ideas multiply money, and those with money are always looking for ideas to invest in. That's how the world runs. But we're not teaching our children to think. No. We're teaching them which color is best to wear so they can advance. It's madness.
Yes,
we need to begin to have conversations in our community. And steps like the march, and you registering digitally to know the occupation, and you registering digitally to participate, gets to let them see there is a number of individuals, whether it be FNM, PLP, or independent, that simply say, we can no longer do the same thing, expecting a different result. We've seen the results of the last 50 years.
yes, yes.
We are now moving into the real 50 years, you know. From 1967 to 2017 was 50 years since majority rule.
Right.
But we need to focus on the 50 years of 2023 when we move into the 50 years, the year of Jubilee of independence. It is time for us to own the Bahamas.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
We begin to have cognitive, clear conversation. And I don't want people to begin to believe this is C. Allen Johnson speaking of. This is the information that's been fed to me by Bahamians, young and old, that I am allowing to become a channel to flow through me. I didn't collect 200 years of information, not me, in the last 15 years. People has fed information, not just to me, I'm just a little more aggressive than the others that are preparing. And for those of you that sits in the seat of power, and if you don't believe in change, I invite you to stand still. You will experience it. Okay? Change is no longer an option for the Bahamas. It's a must.
Yes.
Ownership in the Bahamas is no longer an option. We are here to say there will no longer be governance without consent of the government.
Yes.
And so those MPs who believe that you've been given carte blanche to go into Parliament and say you represent the good constituency of whatever without consultation, when technology allows you to talk to every single one of us in a matter of minutes to get our opinion, to poll us, if you represent that you are of the 21st century, we're giving you notice now. Prove it with your use and engage us to have a conversation that before you stand and vote, because we're going to also embrace something called ambush journalism. Every time you say you vote for a bill, we want you as an individual to explain to us what you voted for.
Yeah.
So that you could tell us that you comprehended what you did. Not some script somebody wrote for you.
That's right.
In fact, they should do away with the script in Parliament. Because if you have no contribution to the debate, it tells you, if you have to go for a script, then you have not enough knowledge to competently have a debate on it.
The gentleman from Chamber of Commerce, we might not go into the WTO conversation tonight, but he feels as if we're better off in it than out it.
And I ask
by
him,
you saying that.
Provide the empirical evidence. See, opinions are like assholes. Everybody got one. I'm a man for qualitative and quantitative data. Provide the information based on the silos of WTO and the mere fact that on December 17 the world changed. We are now we're now a digital economy. What is it we need to export? What is it a resource? Every single one of our resources are exclusive to us. We don't need permission to carry anything. We don't need you to give access to our marketplace. If we want your shit, we'll buy it from you. Don't come in and push it on us.
Yes.
Okay, by pushing over our people. See, when we have conversation, you think in the UAE and other places, in those countries, let me tell you something. WTO is, you have no power. It's called an emasculative. You have a country that already won a lawsuit about America, and America say, make us do something about it. They can't. So they can force you to do something by creating economic blockades around you, but you can't force them to do anything. So in essence, you're giving access without reciprocity. Tell me, what is it? You clearly can't be talking about $20 million worth of goddamn crawfish. You can't. No. That's what you in a $2 billion in a $11 billion economy that we want to sell that. Then let's fix some policy so we can eat that right here. We can't buy $20 million worth of crawfish among ourselves.
Yes,
are we that damn broke?
No, sir.
We have to be mad. That's the argument they made for the EPA, and guess what? The EPA gone. And Donald Trump is redefining World Trade Agreements. So this whole conversation is simply a select group of people who have had the advantage. See, let me explain you something. There's some merchants on Bay Street and other places that is simply saying that we got you all so damn broke and disgusted, you only got shit to spend in our stores, and we need a bigger marketplace. We need more people in the country, and we need another marketplace. This ain't about you. This is about a select group of individuals that already have a head start. Can you imagine those people on Bay Street and other places? They are well prepared with hundreds of millions, not billions of dollars saying, okay, now we're ready to compete. 99% of y'all are not. Right. I guarantee there's 30,000 of them. And they said, we'll not compete. How is it? You have not prepared us to compete.
That's right. And that's the World Trade Organization.
I want you to keep that trend of thought right there. So, how about we say this then? How about we say, let us promote a coalition of independence as opposed to PLPF and DNA? A coalition. How do you feel about a coalition of independence?
Absolutely. You know why? Half of them suckers in the House of Assembly, past and present, could not get there on their own. They got there as part of a gang because they got us voting for gang. Those same, a lot of those individuals we sit under the tree with, we wouldn't let them run crap. I mean, real.
That's true.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
But
yeah.
they were part of the gang.
Yes.
That's why you have a gang. Even the parties don't have independent system of selection. We have a part in the Constitution, number 73. You can't move minutes. The only time they can move minutes, they can try to move minutes at a convention. They can't move him because he got one gun in there in the Constitution. They can't move him. A vote of no confidence give him 7 days to decide whether he wants to resign or call an election. So all he calls, gets up and say, you ain't ready for no election, you know. So you all better sit small until I call your name. That's what it is. If you had, you know, we're the only parliamentary democracy that makes the leader of the party prime minister with the most seats as opposed to the one who commands the most respect. So all you have to do is hijack a party using that internal system and then sit there and hope the other guy in competence allow them to choose you, the lesser of two evils. And so that's how you become prime minister. You don't become prime minister because of your ability. Look at the House of Assembly. I ask you to judge them by the 50 years based on the resources they had and the ability they have. Success is judged by a person's ability. And so you should judge your success by what you were able to accomplish based on your ability, not how what you accomplished based on how somebody else do. We love to hear this. You think we doing bad? You should check Haiti. You think we bad? Check Jamaica. You should, how about, let's judge how you are. You were able to lift this amount of weight and you didn't. You failed.
You're right.
Don't tell me that the one-hand man couldn't even lift the damn thing. What type of comparison is that? And we use shifting goalposts, you know. We'll use America, this country, that country, whatever we want. And it's the same thing when we talk about natural resources. Look what happened over here. Look what happened over there. How about we creating our own method by learning from other people's mistakes? Let's look at what Jamaica did with the bauxite so we don't repeat it with the aragonite or whatever resources. But guess what? Do you know the United Nations, one report showed that the Bahamas is a source of food for the world in the case of farming? The Bahamas. And we come about resources. You love this.
Before you say that, I got a question that came in. It said to get Mr. Johnson also to speak back on the point of the Simonet family and how they were tens of billions of dollars. They have generated that from selling products in the Bahamas.
No, listen. You know what it is, right? They have. They've generated that from mining. They were part of the group of people that had cooperation with Singer, I think his name, for Singer Island and the rest of them. Do you all know that the islands that you all see in Florida, some of those islands was built with using aragonite from the Bahamas, from Grand Bahama and other places, those nice, pretty billion-dollar homes?
Keys, yeah.
Those islands was built with dirt. That stuff that they tell you ain't worth shit that they put on the boat to take to the U.S., that's what they build those islands with. But we've had gun running and rum running and all these different things, and these individuals created laws for their benefit.
Yes, yeah.
That's where their wealth come from.
I can tell you that.
From the extrication of the wealth of the Bahamas, whether it be mining, from gun running, rum running, whatever. You can, even if you begin to examine right here in Freeport, dig deeper into the Hawks Peak Agreement. The Hawks Peak Agreement was never for you Negroes. As Rodney put it, what you Negroes think your benefit was there? It was to give them access to mining. It was to give them access to gaming. Oh, just read the Royal Commission reports. And actually, we need to change the culture that we have in the Bahamas. Almost every Royal Commission report says we are endemically corrupt.
So you say the Simonet, you would agree, I don't know what words you're about. You would agree that the Simonet's wealth, the origin of the wealth through Sir what's father's name again? Roland Simonet. The origin of that is from bootlegging, rum running. I
don't know exactly. I've never really had I'm searching for the details of how they came with the variation of his value being as much as $2 billion. Because in 1972, we didn't have billionaires.
Exactly.
You're not billionaires in the world. And that's
but it's a known fact during the years of prohibition. That
but as I'm saying, they won the shipping business.
And Brand himself admitted to it.
Right. For me, right, I think even his brother has accomplished some of the things. I think at one time he was head of the shipping cartel of the whole world.
But would you agree that?
I mean, they influenced.
Would you agree that rum running during the years of prohibition would equate to drug trafficking today?
No, rum running, all of it. What it simply said is that it equates to the drug trafficking of the 80s that we had, where we provide a certain level of protection, and we simply say, well, there's no law against what they're doing. It's legal here in the Bahamas, and then what you do is you have the benefits. So what happens is you had rum distilleries here in West End and whatever else, and rum was not illegal. We knew those people loading up those boats was not taking them to another island. Are you for real?
Yep.
We knew that those boats were going to the U.S. or whatever else, and so we had people that profiteered on those.
That's a
fact.
Okay,
Right.
and so we have a tendency of philanthropy. You know, we love free stuff, and so let me use another story. It's a good story of how Bahamians are. There's a guy just got paid $1,000, and he's standing on the bus stop, and a guy comes towards him, put a gun to his head, and takes the wallet with the $1,000 in it. But before he leaves, he reaches into the wallet and gives the guy that he's robbing $100 and says, "Now don't tell nobody about this." The other people on the bus stop sees the robbery, calls the police, and the police came and says, "We understand you get robbed," and he says, "Man, I didn't get robbed, man. I don't know what you're talking about. In fact, the person name he mentioned just gave me grocery money." He's a philanthropist. They might take care of the neighborhood. That's how we are.
So we can fully move away from the topic of
But let's go back before we move
the
away.
WTO.
No, right. We can move away from that. But the whole wealth of our country is not made for the benefit of Bahamians. It's an exploitation of the economic reality of the world.
Yeah.
And what is happening today, as we move to the technology, you saw it with Cable Bahamas, you saw it with BTC, you saw it with ZNest. In case you guys don't know, ZNest is not a television station. It's a communications company. Because I want you all to remember, when Cable Bahamas came to the Bahamas, there was an accusation made. It says that Cable Bahamas used the infrastructure of ZNest for cable. Well, how do you use an infrastructure that you don't have? How does a company come in, use your infrastructure illegally if you didn't have it? That means that you must have had it for them to use it.
Exactly.
So the fact that you chose not to, and we allow some people with some briefcases and some fancy words to utilize it to make millions and leave, and that's the whole conversation the other day, because another asset we have is the digital infrastructure that nobody to date can explain how it got divided up. How did some end up in Columbus Communications, how some end up at BTC, and how we sold a percentage.
Well, Columbus Communication was sold to Mark
Right, but we have to find out all these things.
Who owned Columbus Communication?
So again, right, they sold
It's
it
been
to
alleged that Hubert Ingham owned Columbus.
You know, there's a whole bunch of people that may own it. See, this is where an inquiry must happen so we could just go to the root. But here's the problem. The inquiry comes from leadership. And so as long as they put their clowns or pawns or whatever in that position, you're never going to get the truth. Because the whole freedom of information and all these other things you talk about, they're being buried. You know what's more important than freedom of information? Digitization of the Bahamas.
Yeah.
Because these guys are destroying records, you know.
Anna, tell me you agree with me on this. I'm glad we on this subject in terms of, Columbus Communication. Just brought something back. When Mr. Keeping came here from Canada, he was bankrupt.
No, it was. And essentially we took money from National Insurance and the other corporations and forced them to buy shares in Cable Bahamas so he could have operating capital.
But now I'm seeing the exact same thing happening now with this oil refinery company.
But that's but again, as we begin to have the conversation, I want you guys to tune in tomorrow. We're gonna begin a serious conversation concerning this oil refinery and the integrity of governance in the Bahamas.
Where will that
right on the same social media on Facebook.
What time?
Probably around 1 p.m.
What time will the occupation of the March 15th?
We start 10 a.m. that morning. We're going to be gathering in Clifford Park from 6 that morning.
Okay. So we can fully move off of the topic of the WTO.
Of the WTO.
Can we simplify it as to...
no. WTO.
Okay, no WTO. Can we just say if
and
you're not...
If they want WTO, you have... Let's eliminate the soundbite governance from Mr. KP, the Time Quest, and others, where they come and talk to the press for 2 to 3 minutes. Let them engage in 2-3 hours information exchange, not debate, information exchange, that we have competent individuals that has opposing point of view. Iron sharpen iron. If KP the Turnquist can't handle it, we have a host of people that we spend millions of dollars for who's supposed to be preparing for us for this. Let them come and have the conversation. See, the beauty is we allow this leadership to get away with soundbite governance. I think it's a good idea. 60 seconds. Can you imagine you talking to a nation trying to tell them you're prepared in 60 seconds, 90 seconds on television? They're joking. These dudes are serious.
I'm happy you mentioned this because I remember reading an article in the print media as it relates to blockchain technology and cryptocurrency.
The Bahamas has always been the Bahamas. Let me explain something. In 1990, in the late 90s, the world was looking for a place to put a network access point. The 10 largest in the world now exist. They was looking to put the 10th largest network access point. That's where information goes into, it's exchanged and shared with the rest of the world. So complicated to explain. The Bahamas was a forerunner to put a place where these 10 places is practically all information in the world is exchanged. The Bahamas was a forerunner because of our digital preparedness. We had 3 locations in the Bahamas that was under consideration. And because either through corruption, I prefer to believe in corruption because all of a sudden, I believe that they saw us coming down the road. This is how Cable Bahamas started and Columbus Communication. You have these people that even in their ignorance were smart enough to know this is good to own, to prostitute in the future. And so this is where you saw, Cable Bahamas was never about giving you TV, Cable Bahamas was about digital infrastructure and giving you TV as a distraction. It's kind of like, I guess some guys would call it dating, where I take you to a fancy restaurant. It's not about feeding you, darling. It's about screwing you. Okay? And so that's what they did. It was not about giving you entertainment. It was about distracting you. And so essentially, what you have is a movement of these digital assets around the table within the Bahamas, and then you have to ask yourself, how is it that these assets, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, Columbus Communication owned 27.5% of the digital infrastructure essentially in the Bahamas. I can't determine when it went from 100% Bahamian to 72.5%, and they end up at 27.5%. And let's do this quick mathematics. So they sold their 27.5% of this network for $3 billion and some major shares in the company that bought them. They walk away with cash and shares in the company, right? I may not be exact on the figures, but that left BTC with 72.5% of the shares. So when we sold 51%, we didn't sell 51% of 100. We sold 51% of 72.5%, which is like 36% of 100. And so you have to ask yourself, how is it that we sold this 36 or 37% for $100 million? Because that's all we got. Don't mind them figures, but they sporting around, right? And we sold that, and they was able to get, say, even $1 billion for their 27%, and we got $100 million for ours. But the good thing about it is we still own 36% of it, and that 36% of it is worth billions of dollars if properly used. That's why we can't allow this BS story that Mr. Minnis is talking about, selling shares for Alive and selling shares for BTC to Bahamians. See, what they want to do is sell this to some sucker Bahamian for $1, $2. Then you have a person that comes in the background and says, I'll give you $5 for it. And then you sell it, not knowing you're selling a $200 item. Because you say, man, I made $4 profit. That's their way of taking it out of the treasury and getting it for themselves. If you want us to benefit from it, put it in a sovereign wealth fund for management for all Bahamians. And I want you to look at these government agencies. They've been run by incompetent people.
Yes, sir.
Now let me tell you why. Why is it that you could take the same organization? Let me ask you a question. If this company, and I hear these so-called elitist people talking this bullshit, and it's bullshit about government can't run anything. It ain't government. It's the assholes you put to run it. They incompetent. Because why is it you could take some other person, put it in the same company, and the company become profitable? Because you put incompetence there. Incompetence only deliver incompetence.
That's all you get.
That's right.
It is not the fact that BEC can't generate a profit. the people you put there is incapable of knowing how to. If I was to chip my tooth tonight, you think I'm going to go home and tell my son or daughter that I need them to fix it? No, I go and buy the expertise I need. That's what you do. But we put incompetent people because they allow us to maintain a system of control. And so you have people whose ambition is greater than their ability get to be authenticated with a title. That's the problem.
That's all they're looking for.
Because you ask us, you want to see the Bahamas? I want you to go look at all of our MPs, previous MPs and ambassadors. They are begging to be fed from the central depository. They have no ability. These were the guys for 50 years that said it was available to develop the country, you know. And they're starving to death, waiting for board and appointments and whatever else. If these guys was able to develop a multi-billion-dollar economy, clearly even from the information they gathered, they should be able to go into private practice and develop some million-dollar companies. Look at them. We have MPs still dragging slippers, dying in poverty. But they said they were able to develop you. Ambition above ability.
So see, Alan, that means 90% of the Bahamian people always living on promises.
That's what we are. We're good at hope. In the hope, literally, over the last term and coming to this one, hope is the new dope.
Hope is the new dope. Hope is the new dope.
Good slogan.
You know, imagine a refinery. In the that refinery, if we if we lose lucidness and just let this refinery happen, at best, don't get confused with them 600 people. That's the construction phase. At best, you may have 200 people employed, and I put to you 75% of them will be foreigners because we will be in no preparation for no chemical engineers and all these other people that in the refinery business to run it. So they can be foreigners. Okay? Vopak had 160 employees, including the foreigners. And Start Oil. And when you combine them together, this storage is not going to be as big as
money
that.
going on the
So,
country.
no, the employment. The point I'm trying to make to you is this. 30,000 young people will graduate in that same amount of time. And when they come, when this refinery or storage facility is finished in 6 to 7 years, they said we'll hire 200 people permanently. What happened to the other 29,800 people? What plans you have for them? That's why they're selling your silly asses the lottery. You may be one of the lucky ones, your sons and daughters to be hired, but you gotta be really quiet. See, they always said to you is that you make noise, we can take their name out of the hat. They have no chance of getting picked unless your name is in the hat. So you actually sitting there
And in your country.
waiting for 200 jobs when you have 30,000 unemployed, 60,000 unemployed. Where's the strategy to put them in? Because we're ignoring the digital infrastructure. We should have young people on the internet today taking shit they don't own, selling to the people they don't know for money they don't have.
That's right.
Okay? That's the new economy. These guys have no idea. They'll come to you, they'll go to a conference, take the notes, and have a song bite for 3 to 5 minutes with some bullshit about how wonderful digitalization is. And then you go and you ask them, can you tell me what computer you own? None. And they don't even recognize the damn shit they're holding in their hand as a computer. More powerful than anything else. But they talk to you as if they know. If you try to tell me in 40 years of digitalization that we are still the #1 country in the world for the consumption of goddamn carbon paper? Are you for real? We are a paper country. And these guys want to talk to you some crap because you're totally unaware about digitalization of the Bahamas and green Bahamas and digital Bahamas. You want to impress me? Digitize immigration. Show me how bad you is. One goddamn computer in the cloud. You don't even need a computer. Put the shit in the cloud. If you can't buy a scanner, take a goddamn picture of the documents that people have put in the cloud. Exactly. Amazon and Dell and the rest of them ain't gonna lose your shit.
Exactly.
You're right.
Never ever need it. Just as simple. Give every sucker in the Minister of Immigration, give him a damn cell phone. And then somebody come with a document, snap a picture. You got shit, look at the shit on WhatsApp right now. And throw it in the cloud. Don't have to be a real line. Shit, they give us the damn document for the heads of agreement. That's not a line. Why are you trying to say, just snap picture, bring your file. All right, good. We have your file. Give it a number. Put it in the cloud. You don't have to buy a goddamn computer. The whole world is going to the cloud edge.
Wow, you're right. You're
What
right.
type of shit is this? But they want to tell you that they're going to develop. They're going to tell you that they're going to develop the Bahamas the digital,
But hold
and
on.
they can't use a $200 scanner.
See, Alan, you know, a lot of people don't know what this cloud is you're talking about.
Cloud is where you go to Facebook, where you go to Amazon, where you go to Walmart, where you go to porn, wherever you go that you use on somebody's computer that ain't yours.
Yeah.
It's information that is stored remotely.
Yes.
Cloud is simply nothing more than remote computing.
Yep.
99% of what you do today
Storage.
on here. You really believe all these software you're running is on this phone? They're not. They're on some computer storage somewhere.
Yep.
The government of the United States uses that network access point I talked about that we lost the opportunity, but still have the ability to adopt a digital platform in the country. None of these people, see, our advantage in the Bahamas is from a data standpoint. And these guys who's promising you jobs and technology can't take a fucking picture and get it in the cloud. Are you kidding me?
I promise I'm not being a curse.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Sorry, mommy, that wasn't me, mom.
Are you kidding me? And they now talk about managing information for the whole world?
He's right.
It takes a month to digitize immigration with the number of unemployed people we have. You can go to Dell right now and buy a 525W multi-purpose document printer that can scan 250 pages at a time.
Wow.
That we can just digitize it and we'll sort the shit out later.
Right.
That's it.
We can't do that. But we talk about digitizing a country. We're talking about a green country and we can't get solar panels on a goddamn school roof.
No.
See, this is what they're selling you hope. They're selling you this new
Dope.
I know. I know.
Okay?
Yeah.
And so this is why they want to come back to you and tell you, when you talk about your natural resources, they got you so bungled up that you almost confused and overwhelmed with information. Natural resources is simple. Take ownership, buy expertise.
Okay, and bringing us back to the natural resources, what it is that we really want to do with the natural resources? Where do we want to?
First step, own it.
Okay.
That's the first step.
Own it.
And
We want it.
And we want to demand
And
20% of
when
any
we
revenue
own it-
generated.
No, we want 100%.
When we, what do you mean? What do we mean by owning it?
Huh?
What do we
want
mean
is
by owning
we want the assets. We want every asset in the Bahamas to be transferred into a real sovereign wealth fund.
Yes.
100% ownership.
That's it.
So guess what? I will no longer have your cousin, auntie, nephew, and this whole expression, family, friends, lovers, finances. Okay? If you can be his cousin, his lover, and his financer, you have a better chance of succeeding. And so, when you fill the multiple, but ownership says that the sovereign wealth fund takes the responsibility of those sitting in the House of Assembly, the 5-year celebrities, and put it into a sovereign ownership. And it simply says, for all eternity for the land, it will be owned by a collective of all the units. We can lease it out for 80 years, 90 years, 45 years in shared ownership. When a person comes here and say they want crown land, a sovereign asset management company will simply say to you, like Bahama, don't follow that bullshit with Bahama being no $4 billion company. See, the problem is I could build a $150,000 house. It costs $150,000 to build. The appraisal at the end of that may be for $320,000, but that's not a $320,000 investment. That's a $250,000 investment. So when we give $1 billion to a $2 billion investment, we should have been 50% owners. That's what a sovereign wealth does. That's what so what you do is you take ownership of the land and you negotiate from a location strategy. And so you now ownership. So we want the land in a sovereign wealth fund, managed by a credible sovereign asset management and follow the directive of the objectives of the Bahamian people. Yes. We want the aragonite as part of that fund to be negotiated on the international market for its best use practices on behalf of the benefit of Bahamian peoples now and in the future. Sustainable harvesting. We want the fisheries to be in a sovereign wealth fund. We want our reefs to be in a sovereign wealth fund. We want our waters for passage to be owned by the sovereign wealth fund. We don't want it for the realm of politicians who will see somebody in the briefcase and somewhere for them to personally benefit. It's for all. We want to increase the quality of life in the Bahamas. Can you imagine in the Bahamas where you have a house with no mortgage, a light bill for $100 running on, nothing for high-speed internet, so now your children can be engaged in the World Wide Web and economics. That's what you want. You want an empowered nation. And so it isn't about giving giving us money. It's giving us a better quality of life.
I agree. 100%.
Where we're using technology to grow plants and food and whatever. You know, that's the whole story about Bamsi and the rest of that. See, the problem is they got you all confused, you know. They combine food sustainability and agriculture. They're two different things. Okay? Agriculture is a production, food sustainability is survival. There are two different things. I don't know how much y'all gonna eat bananas and lettuce and all the other bullshit when they have some war or something. Y'all need some shit like rice and greens and dry meat and all this stuff and cheese and peanut butter. That's food sustainability. Don't let them fantasize you with food sustainability and agriculture. Agriculture is agriculture, fishery is fishery. And the problem is they have been unable to or unwilling to define what each is. So because in your ignorance and our lack of education, they have allowed to say whatever. And so we want this sovereign wealth fund. This is what Omar them is going to take the occupation for. This is where I will go to the digital web to begin to educate and get people to galvanize and come together to demand. It is about ownership. And the ownership is the collective, where your share is equal to mine, and the baby born this morning has the same as much equity as me at 54 years old. No different. Okay? And so we want these assets, our airspace, our water, our salt, our fishery, our ragonite, our shipping lanes, our land, our oil. All of those things we want in a collective ownership. That we begin to negotiate from a strength of power, a strength of economics. That we own these, our geopolitical location. I mean, you know what's insulting to me? When Trump, and I was home when Obama was elected, that they call Russia and Israel, you know, they call Mexico and they call Canada, and we ain't got no call, and we their third border. We allow ourselves to be disrespected. Nobody's. Because we have leadership that operates on their hands and knees. We need leadership that understands who we are. It's a question you ask, who am I? We need to have a strategy that each of us comprehend, that we can teach our children that we are a gifted people. It's no doubt in my mind, you know, God lives in the Bahamas.
You're right.
And for us, it's a local call. Everybody else has to dial 242. We're blessed.
Yes, we are. We are.
And so the problem is, we don't recognize who we are. We've allowed them to divide us and allow them to redefine us as gangs. You can imagine a person coming, I've been a PLP all my life. What type of shit is that? What is a PLP?
That makes no sense.
How the hell did you become a political party?
A yellow person?
How did you become a political party?
Or a red person?
Do you even recognize that a PLP is a political party? You can't be a PLP. You can say you support the philosophy, and 99.9% of them can't tell you what it is. Because if you want to talk, it's always distracting, but you want to talk about FNM and PLP, you should ask them why them 7 left. You know the 7 that formed the FNM, you know what they said? They left because they thought the PLP was straying away from what their belief was before they themselves become contaminated. So that tells you that the PLP was straying and the FNM are strayed also. And so the ideology that our foreparents fought for, my mother and my grandmother and my father and everything, were equal participant as those who are now rewriting history. You know, one person led no march for majority rule. You know, one person led no fight for women's right. Can you imagine me? Some people in the field for 10 years chopping a tree. I come and take the last chop and say, look, I felt the tree. Look at me.
Get the credit for all of it.
And so we write a book, see Alan Johnson chopped down a tree.
Yes.
People
have been trying to do it for years.
It's disingenuous to the history of us as a collective.
Yeah, it is. It is.
We all suffer equally, and we are continuing to suffer under a system that has separated us from our assets.
Yeah.
That's a good.
Yeah.
That we are allowing political parties who leadership, directly and indirectly, has benefited.
They selling the people out.
They sell us. And so let me show you something.
Sellouts.
We got rid of Celine and Pinland Group, you know. We got rid of his children. But I want you guys to know, Sir Roland Simonet and the Speaker of the House, the former Speaker of the House, their ideology that we somehow always refer to as the boogeyman still is in the House of Assembly. We're seeing it today. We're seeing it today. So we haven't gotten rid totally of this whole change. And I'm hoping that we begin to become organized to hold them accountable so we can park this shit until 2022 so we can enjoy the full benefits when we celebrate in 2023 for our 50th anniversary of Jubilee, which is freedom under the religious order that most of us believe in.
Yes.
Oh, man.
And I do believe there's a shift. We had 60% of group that was born post-independence, you know. The problem is their parents have not taught them who they are. We want people to begin to ask the question, who am I? And begin to examine the possibilities. See, and this is something no politician has been able to answer me. Where are we today and where are we going tomorrow? There's a concept, you want to take a trip, call a travel agent and say to the travel agent, I'm calling you from Grand Bahama. I'd like to take a trip. And when the travel agent asks you where you want to go, say, I don't know. She can't book you. Call another travel agent and this time say, man, I want to go to New York. Where do you want to leave from? I don't know. You must always know where you are and where you want to go to plot a path. We can't tell us where we are. We don't know who we owe, what we owe, and why we owe it. We don't know the benefits of what our sovereign debt that we have achieved and the value for it. We don't have a plan that can tell us in 5 and 10 years. Don't give me the crap about the NDP, the National Development Plan. That's a book of ideas.
What about that?
A strategy tells you exactly how to get there. See, and I use the expression again, going back to what I said. A problem properly defined is 90% of the solution. I use the example all the time, education. We all scream, oh, we got bad education. We have an education system that don't work. That's not defining a problem. Defining a problem is where we says our education system is rooted in 20th century ideology.
It's antiquated.
Our education system does not use the 21st century technology. Our teachers are not prepared in a new system of teaching. We are using, our education system is failing because we are using buildings that is built on an idea of the past. Do you realize in defining that problem, I also give you the solution? But here's what we now must happen. 100% of us in a conversation could come to comprehend what needs to be done. The problem with that is only 10% of us will be able to define what needs to be done. Notice I said, we will know, sorry, repeat that. We will know, 100% of us will know what needs to be done. Mm-hmm. Only 10% of us will be able to figure out how to do it. And only 1% of us will be able to execute it. 100% know what to do, 10% knows how, and only 1% knows how to execute. We must begin to identify that 1% to lead our country of executing these ideas and policies for ownership of the Bahamas, for our aragonite, for our salt. And guess what? And we talk about this major thing, right? When you look at the aragonite, when you look at fisheries, we need access to boat, we need access to capital, so our young people could be directed into these micro and mini industries where we have 1,000 individuals making $100,000 or $1 million. It grows the economy. Mm-hmm. You understand? What we need to do is, how do we use aragonite internally as well as globally? How do we use our salt internally as well as globally on the global market, but at the same time creating industries utilizing it? How is it that we have a fishery, 25% of the fish in the world is born? How is it that we have a water supply of table that can't explain? How is it we have the tongue of the ocean of which we have no benefit? In the tongue of our ocean we make billions of dollars. So the United States in the tongue of the ocean. We have no intellectual property. I know we wind up, but which brought me to this thing of intellectual property. I want Bahamians to know, the most valuable asset we have in the Bahamas is the Bahamian people. Mm-hmm. Let me talk digital for a second. We need to digitize every single Bahamian. Your DNA in the future will be worth billions of dollars. You need to own the intellectual capital to it. We need to digitize every single plant in the Bahamas. You know Monsanto? Do you know if you buy grass from Monsanto and the grass crawls into the neighbor yard, it contaminates that grass, and that grass now belongs to Monsanto? When we own the intellectual property to the DNA of every single Bahamian, when they find a cure for cancer using the cells from our country, we will own that multi-billion and trillion-dollar result. When we have plant life that is indigenous to the Bahamas, that can't be found anywhere, and we have micro weathers in the Bahamas, you know. The coconut that grows in East Grand Bahama is not the same in West Grand Bahama or in Bimini or something else. There's slight variances digitally. And when we own those digital rights for all the trees and all the fish and all these other different things, we would move into this new digital world in a figure that goes beyond trillions.
Oh, yeah, that is true.
Okay? Because these are simple digital rights. Because when a person dies of cancer in the Bahamas, you don't believe that somebody owns their DNA? I want you to go read the fine print at the DNA places on the market. They tell you that when you go to get your ancestry, they own your DNA forever. What are they collecting and owning it for? We need to own every Bahamian DNA. All those people with those BRCA genes and these cancer, we need to own their DNA. So when those information is used to find a cure for cancer or any other disease, if they use intellectual capital that comes from the Bahamas, it belongs to us as a sovereign people. No technology in the world, no medicine in the world, no food in the world, no fish in the world, even the sand and the salt and the aragonite has digital fingerprints that we can register and then simply say, if we come to New York and find a building that was built with sand from the Bahamas, and you can't show us where it is, we're going to exercise sovereignty and tell you we want our building.
That's it.
Ownership. This is the new thinking. We must move from an adjustment of just overbroke suckers jobs they give you into with ownership. And it's important for us to support these movements and recognize that these movements, such as the occupation, such as my digital advocacy, such as what is happening with Prescott, such as what is happening with Kendall Colebrook and others, that we are not individuals. We are part of a collective, no different than your heart, your kidney, your lungs, your hand, your foot, your eyes, your mouth. All of these things work as a collective. That we must recognize that we are separate but apart. That we can't exist one without the other. You know, they tell you a story where they put the most valuable person in the body, where the mouth, the hand says, y'all won't eat unless I eat. The brain says, you wouldn't do this, whatever. And then the other person says, you wouldn't piss, whatever. And the asshole shut up. And the whole rest of the body fell in line. Each of us has a value as part of the collective, but they have created a point of separation. Ladies and gentlemen, we're here about your assets. Your aragonite is worth trillions of dollars. Your salt in the new dispensation is worth trillions of dollars. Your passage through the waterway over the years is worth trillions of dollars. Your airspace is worth trillions of dollars. Your foliage, your foliage in it is worth trillions of dollars. Your flat is worth trillions of dollars. All of these makes the Bahamas the most valuable country in the world. But they're not having this conversation. They're telling you, we're going to give you a dose of hope for you to get high on and have an expectation. So you can sit around and hope that in 6 years that you're the one for the 200 jobs, while at the same time your sons and daughters graduate. We should not be paying for education. We have a geopolitical position where we can, do you know the United States denies thousands of visas every month? That we can actually create, they don't need a visa to come to the Bahamas. Why don't we create an environment for them to go to school in the Bahamas, but digitally connect to these other schools in the U.S. and get the same degree? And while they're here, they're consuming, they're renting, they're doing this.
I can check you.
Right, sir. We do it while they're eating and drinking and doing all these different things. They become consumers. Let's move to have citizenship laws that protect sovereignty of our country. When individuals can have enjoy the Bahamas but not have the right to vote, and not have the right to say be born here and given derivative citizenship. Because you don't understand that when you give citizenship to that person, you're giving citizenship to all future children from that person and all marriages and everything else that they have. That's called derivative citizenship. You're not giving citizenship to one person. Those phantom names that you see in the newspaper, you may have given citizenship to hundreds of people that you don't even know. We don't know. We need to have real, cognate conversation. And ladies and gentlemen, I invite you to reach out to Omar, reach out to myself, reach out to others, and find out how can you participate. And for those of you on the Out Island, you can participate in the sit-in digitally. Because I'm going to work at creating a platform so you can register your presence without actually physically being there. And so that you can let them know that you are on Long Island. You are unaware. Awake. Because we want to let them know, we are not PLPs, we're not FNM, we're not DNAs. We are awoke.
That's right.
Awoke.
We are awoke.
No more sleeping.
And so you can let them know that you have to become involved. That you can't have NASA make. You see, they have. I know we're writing it up, right? You see how NASA makes all the decisions, and they don't consult with you. Can you imagine they making an oil refinery on Grand Bahama? Is that contract with East Grand Bahamians, or is that contract with Bahamians? Is the Hawksbill Creek Agreement a contract with licensees, or is it a contract with all Bahamians? Is the people in Mayaguana, Inagua, Auckland, Long Island, are they not Bahamians? Are they not subject to that contract we signing? So how come you don't consult with them? You want to go talk to 500 of your friends that you crowd in the room and say, see, they agree. There's 400,000 of us, 212,000 eligible voters. We need to begin to consult with, you need to involve us. Governance without consent of the government will no longer be tolerated. We are no longer slaves. We are declaring our economic independence. We are declaring ownership. If you don't know, now you know.
Now you do.
Now you do. There's no excuse. Get involved, Bahamians. Occupation. Register yourself. Become involved. Follow Omar page. Follow my page. Follow all of us as a collective. Prescott, Tomiko, and all these other different people. Follow us and begin to get information. And don't let them say we're talking. Let them tell us that we are wrong. Remember, they always say he makes a lot of noise. How about saying that he's wrong? Thank you very much.
Okay, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. We are here at the Q Lounge. The Q Lounge is open every day, Miss Gina, for lunch
And dinner.
and dinner. Miss Gina,
Yes.
and the time the Q Lounge is open?
Tuesday to Friday, 11:30 to 3 for lunch. Weekdays from Wednesday. Karaoke Thursday. Sushi Friday. We're starting sushis on Friday.
Sushi on Friday, 11:30
3.
for 3 for lunch, dinner, drinks, whatever. Come
Like
get drunk and
karaoke
eat.
Thursday. That's
Karaoke Thursday.
So-
And what's the phone number they can call for information?
602.
602
927.
927.
602-0927.
Or
Just get
443-7803.
or
Or
WhatsApp
443-7803.
7803. Just WhatsApp them, get information, how to send you the menu
Best food in
and the
town.
time.
Yes, the food here is great. Karaoke is a bus. So thank you guys so much. Please share the video. Don't forget, check out Omar and the occupation of Bay Street on March 15th.
It's not just Omar, it's just Bahamians for Better Bahamas.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for taking a stand for us.
Yeah.
The best 2 hours I ever spent.
Oh,